Spain, the land of rabbits. No, seriously. Hispania, as the Romans called it, is thought to derive from the Phoenicians, who encountered an abundance of rabbits upon settling in the Iberian Peninsula. Beyond rabbits, Spain is the land of ancient tribes and Roman legions, petty kings and holy wars. The world's first superpower emerged from the golden hills and temperate shores, only to fall, rebuild, and fall again. But like a phoenix who emerges from the ashes of his own destruction, Spain always rises. So how did this backwater region at the furthest reaches of the Roman Empire become the world's first superpower? We will answer that question and more. This is the entire history of Spain. Before Rome, in around 3000 BC, the Iberian Peninsula was home to the Iberians in the east and south and the Celtic tribes in the north and west. One of the earliest urban civilizations was Tartessos, a wealthy port kingdom rich in precious metals that traded with the Phoenicians and Greeks. They spoke a now extinct language called Tartessian, which predates Roman languages. The almost mythological descriptions of Tartessos as a grand metal city in ancient Greek texts have led some archaeologists to believe that the Tartessians were the origin of the Atlantis myth. Furthering this theory, it is believed that the civilization was largely abandoned due to heavy flooding of the Guadalquivir River, which eventually swallowed and buried their capital city whole. Was Atlantis really Tartessos? The answer to this question is lost in time, somewhere beneath modern-day Andalusia. By the 6th century BCE, the North African-based Carthaginians, Rome's greatest rival, established trading colonies along the Iberian coast, including the city of Carthago Nova, where modern-day Cartagena now sits. But their growing power and influence in the region attracted the attention and jealousy of Rome, who sought Iberia for themselves. Rome invaded Iberia during the Second Punic War against Carthage, starting in 218 BC. It took nearly 200 years of brutal warfare to conquer the peninsula, but by 19 BC, Iberia became Hispania, one of Rome's richest provinces. Roman Hispania built cities like Meridia and Tarragona, which produced and exported gold, wool, olive oil, grain, and wine. Massive infrastructure projects were painstakingly built. Roads, aqueducts, and theaters allowed Roman control to be absolute for over 600 years. Hispania even birthed the Roman emperors Trajan, Hadrian, and the forefathers of Marcus Aurelius. Latin eventually became the language of the land, which eventually evolved into Spanish, Portuguese, and Catalan. While Rome collapsed, the Germanic tribes of the Suebi and Vandals invaded the peninsula around 409 AD. The Suebi and Vandals established kingdoms of their own in the north and south. They largely assimilated into Roman customs, maintaining and upholding the laws of the dying empire. This included adopting Christianity. The Visigoths were another Germanic tribe who settled in southern Gaul, directly across the mountains that separated the Iberian Peninsula from the rest of Europe. The Visigoths were famed warriors. Having sacked Rome in 410, their esteem as conquerors was well known. Despite having burnt Rome to the ground, a tenuous alliance emerged between the Western Roman Empire and the Goths after Atholf, king of the Visigoths, married Galla Placida, the sister of Emperor Honorius. In cooperation with Emperor Honorius, the Visigoths invaded Hispania from their capital of Toulouse and crushed the Suebi and Vandal kingdoms, subsequently uniting the peninsula under their own rule over the course of a couple hundred years. The Visigoths practiced Catholicism and blended Roman law with Germanic traditions, but their kingdom was unstable. Succession crises and noble infighting left them vulnerable to what was coming next. In 711, an army of Umayyad Muslims, mostly Berbers from North Africa, crossed the Strait of Gibraltar and crushed the Visigoths at the Battle of Guadalete. In just a few short years, most of Spain became Al-Andalus. At its peak, Cordoba was one of Europe's largest and most advanced cities, known for libraries, scholars like Averroes, and stunning architecture. The Alhambra Palace in Granada remains a symbol of this era. But Christian kingdoms in the north began fighting back in what became a 700-year struggle, the Reconquista. The resistance against Moorish rule began with small Christian kingdoms in the north, one of them being Asturias, which won the Battle of Covadonga in 722. Over centuries, kingdoms like Leon, Castile, Aragon, and Navarra expanded south little by little, taking back the land they believed to be rightfully Christian over the course of hundreds of years. The point of no return for the Moorish kingdoms came at the Battle of Las Navas de Tolosa. in 1212, where the joined armies of Castile, Aragon, and Navarre defeated the forces of the Almohad Caliphate. Due to the terrain, the battle was brutal, close-quarter combat. In the Latin chronicles of the kings of Castile, it was said they attacked, fighting against one another, hand-to-hand, with lances, swords, and battle axes. There was no room for archers. The Christians pressed on, eventually creating a gap in the Moorish line. The Christians poured through, advancing straight to the caliph's tent, forcing al-Nasir to retreat to the hills. This victory broke Moorish power in central Spain. The Iberian wedding solidified Christian dominion over Spain. The marriage of Ferdinand of Aragon and Isabella of Castile united Spain's two largest kingdoms. Although the two kingdoms continued to be administered separately, this was essentially the event that created Spain as we know it today. Think of it similar to the personal union between England and Scotland. They remained separate in practice, but were conjoined as a united kingdom. If you'd like to learn more about that union, go check out my History of England video. Anyways, the united forces of Spain captured the final Moorish kingdom of Granada in 1492, ending Muslim rule in Iberia after nearly 8 centuries. 1492 wasn't just about Granada. That same year, Ferdinand and Isabella sponsored Christopher Columbus, launching Spain's age of exploration and discovery, subsequently beginning Spain's Golden Age. Spanish colonies would settle across the Caribbean islands, Mexico, Florida, and almost the entirety of South America, and to the east in the Philippines and the Spice Islands in Indonesia. Conquistadors like Hernan Cortez and Francisco Pizarro toppled the Aztec and Inca empires, sending unimaginable wealth back to Spain at the cost of millions of indigenous people. These empires were advanced in ways few people understand. The tragedy of their destruction cannot be overstated. Under Charles V and Philip II, who were Habsburgs by the way, it is said that Spain became the world's first superpower. During the Golden Age of Spain, it was said that wherever a Spaniard is breathing, there is Spain. And there were Spaniards everywhere across the globe. The Spanish territories were protected by the Spanish Armada, a naval force of which the world had never seen. The Spanish man-of-war was akin to the aircraft carriers today in terms of power projection. But this Golden Age was built on exploitation, forced conversion to Christianity, and devastating diseases that wiped out entire cultures of indigenous peoples. Spain would not escape this amount of evil unscathed. Endless wars, inflation from silver, and the defeat of the Spanish Armada in 1588 signaled the start of the decline. When the last Habsburg king, Charles II, died childless, the War of Spanish Succession erupted. Charles named Philip of Anjou, a Frenchman, his heir, while the Archduke Charles of Austria claimed he had the right to rule Spain in tandem with Austria. It is estimated that over 1 million soldiers died between the two sides over the course of 13 years. The Bourbon dynasty of France and Philip of Anjou eventually won the throne of Spain, but Spain lost many European territories to Austria, including the Netherlands, Naples, and Milan. The cost of victory was great. The Bourbons introduced modern reforms to the aging Spanish society, modernizing the navy, economy, and administration. But by the 18th century, Spain was no longer the dominant power it once was. In fact, it was hardly a regional power at all. In 1808, Napoleon invaded Spain, placing his brother Joseph Bonaparte on the Spanish throne. The Spanish were a proud people and did not agree with this. They fought back in the brutal Peninsular War, using guerrilla tactics and British support to drive the French out. These guerrilla warfare tactics would become commonplace in Spain in the next 200 years. But the war left Spain weakened, and between 1810 and 1825, nearly all of Spain's American colonies declared independence. By 1898, after losing Cuba, Puerto Rico, and the Philippines to the United States, the Spanish Empire was effectively gone. The 20th century was chaos, coups, dictatorships, and the short-lived Second Spanish Republic. From 1936 to 1939, the Spanish Civil War tore the country apart. Nationalists led by Francisco Franco defeated the left-wing Republicans in a brutal conflict that left most confused as to what they were even fighting for. Most Spaniards did not want the fascist rule of Franco, but the opposing side was too fragmented and disorganized to combat the unified direction of the fascists. Many of the soldiers fighting for Franco only did so because the alternative was starvation and poverty. Not many people know that the famous author George Orwell fought in the Civil War on the side of the anti-fascists. His book, Homage to Catalonia, is one of the most interesting books I've ever read. If you want to know more about the Spanish Civil War and how it affected the Catalonia region and Barcelona specifically, I could not recommend it enough. It is seriously great. The fascists eventually won, and Franco ruled as a dictator until his death in 1975, keeping Spain isolated from much of Europe and hindering development. The country today is still recovering from his dominion. After Franco's death, King Juan Carlos I transitioned Spain to a democracy, making it a constitutional monarchy similar to Great Britain. Spain joined the European Union in 1986, modernized its economy, and became one of the world's top tourist destinations. I myself have spent some time in Spain. I can personally say it's one of the most beautiful and culturally rich places on the planet. If you are ever in Tossa de Mar, say hi to the old abuela at Restaurante Dinos for me. The sauce she puts on whitefish is something I still dream about. Today, Spain is a vibrant democracy, though political tensions, especially Catalonia's independence movement, remain a challenge. From ancient tribes to global empire, from civil war to democracy, Spain's history is one of resilience, reinvention, and incredible cultural legacy. And that's the entire history of Spain. Which period fascinates you the most? The Moorish Al-Andalus, Spanish Empire, or the Civil War? Let me know in the comments. And if you love European history, make sure to like, subscribe, and check out my other videos. Thanks for watching, everyone, and have a wonderful day.